Hi friends. It is my favorite time of the year. So it is the end of September. Well, no, it is beginning of October actually, and the tomato garden is coming out. We're slowly starting to put this whole garden to bed. I'm gonna get a huge chunk of it done this weekend, um, just because I want to reclaim the space. And these tomatoes are massive, and I am done with them. This was not my tomato year this year. I planted them way too close together. So I didn't trellis them correctly. I've always struggled with trellis and tomatoes, and this year was one of the worst ones ever. Um, and I saw the tomatoes like laid on the ground. They got eaten by pests. I didn't really harvest a ton of ripe big tomatoes off of here. Much of the tomato that you see in this mess is largely two cherry tomatoes. My two cherry tomatoes have gone fantastically. And I've been eating a ton of cherry tomato caprese salads, which I've been obsessed with this summer. So I think the cherry tomatoes might stay, and I might let the frost kill them because I still am enjoying picking the cherry tomatoes. But the rest of these tomatoes are coming out this weekend. So, so far, I have picked a nice basket of green tomatoes. And so what I'm doing is I'm not planning on ripping these potatoes out or these tomatoes out today. I just got off of work. It is a little bit later. I am getting hungry. I actually did some running right after work. So it's later than it should be. And I'm getting a little hungry. But to make this weekend easier, I wanted to get out here and at least get the green tomatoes harvested. That way I can just come in on Saturday and start ripping. So we've had rain every single day for the past 2 weeks, and this is the first sunny day, which is also why I want to be out here soaking up some sun before my belly tells me to go inside and eat. um, and so a lot of my tomatoes, and I'm suspecting all of my cherry tomatoes are not going to be able to be eaten. They're all going to be split. I have picked some split ones in here. They're at the bottom. I'll go through these when I get these in the house. Oh, look at those leg muscles. That would have hurt if I fell. Definitely experiencing any ripe tomatoes on here that the bugs or the pests haven't gotten yet. They're split. Oh, here's an example of one that's split. It just gets too much water. And we got a lot of rain in a short amount of time. Which brings me to a very good point. I wanted to make sure that I'm being very vocal about this because I'm very upset about what is happening, but Hurricane Helene came in and absolutely destroyed North Carolina and Tennessee. And I want to let you know that my thoughts, my prayers are with you, and I am mad. I am mad that it doesn't seem like the resources are going where they need to go, and I pray that there is a resolution. I know thousands of people at this point have to be deceased. I suspect the confirmed number to just continue to grow over the next weeks and the next months. People that have lost everything, my heart is absolutely shattered. And so I think as Americans, we need to stand up together. And I don't ever try to make this a political thing, or I don't want to. This is supposed to be an escape from the real world. Gardening, I know that I prep for the contingencies of God knows what. But gardening for me started as a escape from the real world, and I want to keep it like that. I want to make sure that this channel is always an escape from the real world. However, or escape slash prepping for the real world, and preparing yourself for whatever can come. And I still want that. I still want it to be light and happy and feel good. But we're a week after Helene, and everything I'm seeing online is none of it is good. All of it is bad. And I'm not talking about the devastation. I'm talking about the response time. I'm talking about how these people are being helped. It is not going well. And so I think as Americans, we need to stand up and we need to let this area, this region that has been decimated, know that we stand with you. We have your back. And we pray that this gets resolved as quickly as it possibly can. You know, you can find your loved ones. I feel awful that people have lost loved ones, but you can start hopefully the process of rebuilding this area. It's going to take months and years, but my thoughts and prayers are with you. There's nothing good to say in this kind of situation, but I wanted to make sure that that was noted on my end. Because in my real life, I'm very mad and I'm very outwardly passionate about how I don't think there is enough being done. So let's go back to other content and not doom and gloom, but just know that our prayers are with you. So because we got the remnants of Helene, we had a lot of rain, and we had rain over 2 weeks. And so my cherry tomatoes all do it. My cherry tomatoes all split. It's hard to see. I kind of see. They just get too much rain, and so my green tomatoes are starting to split too, which says something because green tomatoes are much harder. These green tomatoes have no firmness. There's no give to those tomatoes. But I said at the beginning of this vlog that this is my favorite time of the year. And the reason that this is my favorite time of the year is because one of my favorite things, one of my least liked things and one of my favorite things is tomato soup. Now, hear me out. As a kid, I think we all had Campbell's tomato soup, right? You add milk to it, hunky dory. Well, I hate Campbell's tomato soup. I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible. But one of my favorite things to do is you take these tomatoes, you take them inside, and you make a tomato soup from fresh tomatoes. And then you want to take it up a notch. You want to roast the tomatoes before you make tomato soup. My golly, is that good. So I like to harvest my green tomatoes. And one of the ways that I use these green tomatoes is I will put them out on my dining room table and I'll let them ripen. And we're in early October. Right now the weather outlook looks solid for the next 2 weeks. No rain, all sun. But what I really like is, especially when it's a rainy day or a chilly day, I come home, I find whatever tomatoes are starting to ripen on the counter, and I throw them in a bowl, and I make a fresh tomato soup. I just throw them skins and all in the pot. I roast them until they're completely cooked. Take the skins off. I add diced onion, I add cream, I add spices, I add fresh herbs. And when I tell you this fresh tomato soup takes, on the short side, 45 minutes to make. On the long side, you really kind of let everything meld together. It takes about an hour and a half. It is dynamite. It is dynamite. It is so much better than like canned tomato soup. And I do make my own tomato soup and can, and these two are two completely separate products. The tomato soup that I make in can more so resembles a Campbell's tomato soup, and when I use that, I add other stuff to it to make it a totally different type of soup. But those two tomato soups, like my canned one and then this fresh one, are two completely different soups. So I love on a chilly day. There's something better, I think, than soup on a fall day, soup on the stove. So on a fall day, or even a rainy, chilly day, just come throw the tomatoes in the pot, whatever you have going, and let that cook for an hour or so. It's so good. And then I like to put one of my fresh paninis with it, some sourdough bread, some cheese, and make a really, really yummy panini. So good. So now, gotta figure out how to get in here to get some of these big old cherries, these big old tomatoes over here. So I definitely have a bug problem in the garden. I've never had an issue with roly-polies. I do this year, and I don't have an issue with roly-polies, but I have a ton of roly-polies, and I have a ton of slugs. I'm definitely having a slug issue, so we are going to treat for slugs. I think the Sluggo treats for roly-polies. I don't know if you can see that grossness. It is, I think it needs to focus. This was on the vine. This was not on the ground. And The roly-polies found it and they're all up in there. And so I've been seeing slugs everywhere. If you're new to my channel, I had a massive issue with slugs this year that ate all of my brassica plants. That really sucked. So we're definitely going to treat in the next week or so with Sluggo all over the property to see if we can't, get this under control. So I have one more small area I want to check, but my basket is full of green tomatoes. So let me go check that other area, and then I'll come back and I'll talk to you about green tomatoes. I don't think so. So, today is Thursday. Tomorrow I have plans all day, but Saturday, the plan is to really do a lot of work here in this garden. The tomatoes are all going to come out. Like I said, I might leave the cherry tomatoes, but the big tomatoes are coming out. The fish are going to come out. We're going to store all that, and then I got the straw yesterday. It was the first day that it didn't rain since I harvested my sweet potatoes over 2 weeks ago. So, I'm going to put all these areas fed with some cardboard, some fertilizer, and some straw. So you guys will be back with me in 2 days time to do that. And then we're going to start putting a lot of this garden to bed. I have a ton more thistle to pull. The thistle has loved all the rain, so that's really been growing. So I'm trying to really keep up with that as much as I can. So I have some more thistle that we need to pull in the flower farm. We're going to have a flower farm wrap-up video when I put that to bed. I still have zinnias and dahlias and snapdragons coming. My sunnies are done, but the sunnies, I think I'm gonna try to get the sunflowers out this week or this weekend and put those big beds to bed. But the other ones that had the dahlias and zinnias, I'm gonna let them go until they die from the frost because I think they're pretty. But I am gonna do a wrap-up video on the flower farm when we do that. So some exciting things to look forward to. But I'm excited to get this garden reclaimed and put back to bed. Our average frost is the first weekend of October. I actually thought that we were going to be earlier than the first weekend, and I was wrong. We ended up having a heat wave come through, so we got really cold early. Like early September for us was quite chilly. I think it was below normal, and then we ended September above normal. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not having a frost. I'm definitely loving the cooler weather, but I'm not ready for ice and frost. Okay, but I'm excited to get this all put back together, put back to bed. So we're just, once I get the tomatoes out, it's going to look so much nicer. Let me spin you guys and show you. The tomatoes just make this whole, let's go around the umbrella. The tomatoes just make this whole space crazy, crazy messy. And so that's the one thing with this garden is it's October. A lot of the stuff went in April, so it's been in the ground for 5 months. It's gone crazy. It gets big, it gets crazy, it gets wild, and I'm done with it. I like a very much more organized garden, and this year we had a much hotter July than normal. So normally my August is when things go crazy, but things went crazy in July. So things have been crazier for a month longer than they typically are, and I am done. So I'm very excited to get this put back together. But the point of this video, stop rambling, Caitlin, and talk about green tomatoes. So like I said, my intended way to use probably all of these at this point is to let them ripen on the counter and use them as fresh tomatoes. Do them as fresh tomato soup, fresh tomato, like spaghetti sauce, anything like that. It's going to be delicious. Last year I did a video that I canned green tomatoes. I canned fried green tomatoes. So you take more so your smaller green tomatoes like this guy here, and I can them in like a pickling brine. And then when I want to make fried green tomatoes, I just pull these out of the jar. They're sliced, and then I bread them and fry them. Now, they do have a little bit of a pickle flavor because they're in a pickle brine. And the longer they sit in that brine, they do start to break down a little bit more. They're not as firm, but I still have a whole bunch of jars left over from last year, so I'm not going to do any of that this year. I need to eat those jars for next year. But you can do canned green tomatoes. That's really fun. And then what I like to do with them is in the middle of December. Typically around here in the middle of December, we'll have a random like heat wave where it'll be like 60 degrees and it feels like summer. And so I love to come out, put something on the grill, and like kind of like channel summer in the middle of December when we have one of those nice warm days. So I love to do that. I also have done a green tomato curry. I think that is really phenomenal. I've done that. I did a whole big batch of that. That goes a long way. I did a whole big batch of that 2 years ago, and I still have, I think, 4 jars left. So I'm not gonna do any more of this green tomato curry until I eat those 4 jars. You can do your own green tomato salsa verde. I've seen recipes, and I've done, not successfully with this one, but there are recipes for green tomato ketchup. And it does turn brown once you add all the spices and you cook it and stuff. It turns into like a dark red, brownish ketchup. I've done that. It tasted good, but it didn't get thick. It was very runny. I don't have the patience, I don't think, to cook down ketchup as long as it takes. But if you are getting rid of your green tomatoes, like if you're getting rid of your tomato plants and you have a ton of green tomatoes on them, don't throw them away. There are a ton of things you can do with them. A green tomato salsa, a green tomato jardiniere. I think it's delicious. Or let them ripen on your counter, and then when they're ripe, cut them and core them. So when I say cut them and core them, you cut off the bottom of them, cut off the butt, cut out the core, and then slice them in an X. And then what you do when they're ripe, throw them in a freezer bag, throw them in your freezer, and then on a nice snowy day in the middle of winter when you want to make spaghetti, just grab out a bag of freezer tomatoes, throw them in a pot, and then when you cook them, the skins will slide right off. And because you cut them and cored them, the core's already gone, perfect. And because you cut them, then the skins slide right off. So that's a great thing to do. If you don't can, you're not interested in canning, throw them in the freezer, and then you can just use them to make fresh spaghetti sauce all throughout winter. Great use. Definitely don't let your green tomatoes go bad. Don't let them don't compost them, because you can use them. I will be honest, at this point, my green cherry tomatoes, I'm not messing with. There's too many on there. They're too small. I'm not messing with them. So I will compost them whenever I pull out those plants. But I am happy that I got this basket full of green tomato. I keep wanting to say green cherry tomatoes, of green tomatoes. And that's one more thing that is out of the garden. In 2 days, we'll have the plants out of the garden too. But this garden year is coming to an end, and I am ready for it. So we need to start thinking about already. We need to start thinking about next year. It is, like I said, it's October 3rd today. And I'm going to do an experiment this year where I start my flowers around Thanksgiving. So my annual flowers, my petunias, my pansies, all that stuff, I have started them around Halloween before to get them big enough. I wanted to get them like this hanging pot size that you buy from the store. Haven't been successful starting them that early. So I'm going to start a lot of my stuff, I think, around Thanksgiving. And we'll see how this goes. The reason being is this year I planted, and every single year I plant so many annual flowers. So many. And this year, I think because everything was so small, the bugs ate them. Like the rabbits ate them. Like I lost all of them. I planted a Cosmo in that back windmill garden, and that Cosmo bloomed for the first time 3 weeks ago. So the middle of September is when that Cosmo started blooming, and that Cosmo went into the ground in April. So I really struggle with my plants getting eaten at this point. So I'm thinking, my thought process is if I can get the plants bigger, when they go into the ground, they won't get eaten back as easily. That is the plan. But I wanted to give an update on my green beans. If you've been following me, you might know this. I think I've shared this. Over the winter, I was organizing the freezer like I tend to do, and I got out my bag of frozen green beans, to organize the freezer and then never put them back. And the green beans melted, or they thawed, and then they molded. So I lost my entire freezer's worth of green beans. Okay, not the end of the world. So I planted my green beans this year, knowing I needed to not only fill the freezer, but I also needed to fill the pantry. I only have 1 jar of canned green beans left, and I wanted some. So I planted my green beans, and this was one thing again. I don't know why. I don't know what happened this year. Everything grew slower. I put sunflower seeds in the ground in April. They didn't start growing until August. Um, I have no idea. I put green bean seeds in. I was putting green bean seeds in every single day for like 3 weeks, and they weren't growing. Finally, towards the end of May, they started growing. I should have been harvesting beans in June, and I didn't. I didn't start harvesting beans until the end of August. I don't know why. I can't honestly figure it out. My soil is good. They're growing fine. I don't think there's a nutrient deficiency. And the fact that it was so many different plants, it's almost like they didn't get enough sun. They weren't getting what they needed sun-wise. But there was plenty of sun. So I have no idea. I really struggled across the board to get plants to grow. But all that to say, my green beans finally started producing. And at this point, they have stopped producing. I don't know, again, and I honestly don't know why they've stopped producing either. Maybe just they're not getting as much sun. It's definitely a lot cooler than it is in June, July, and August. But they're still putting off flowers, but they're not really giving me beans. So it could be too cool for them. The nights could be too cool for them. That could 100% be the case. But either way, I'm no longer getting any beans. So I was able to fill the freezer. I think I probably got about 10 bags, if I had to guess, 10, 11 bags, quart bags of green beans. And I've done some fresh eating. So that's always been good. I love when I can do fresh eating too. So I've done some fresh eating. I think I've got enough green beans in the freezer for the winter. I will be honest that I will need to conserve my green beans. Normally I have 50 bags in the freezer. So if I want to grab 2 bags at a time and make like a green bean casserole, I can do that. I don't have that flexibility as of now. So I think 10 bags of green beans will be more than enough to last me through the winter, eating them moderately. I'm debating going and purchasing from the market green beans to can. So I can have a couple green bean cans on the shelf. I'm debating doing that. So we'll see if I do that. And then if I want to add any more green beans to the freezer, or if I just want to leave it at the 10 that I have. So we're going to think, I'm still mulling that over. I haven't decided what I want to do, but I'm blessed that we got the freezer filled. Maybe not as many as I wanted, but we got some in there. So I'm going to take what I can get. But I'm going to go ahead and end this video now. I'm going to take my green tomatoes in the house, and we are going to lay them out on the table so they can start ripening. And then I'll bring you guys along when I do make that fresh tomato soup, because it is quick and easy and delicious. But I want to thank you guys for joining me. As always, I'm coming along on my adventures. If you haven't started gardening yet, start gardening. Start planning for next year. I'm going to start coming out here on cold winter days, and just when the garden's all put to bed and everything's dead, I'm going to come out here and just envision where I want everything to go in the spring. I already know where my tomatoes are going in the spring, but that's all I got so far. So we'll need to start thinking about what we want to do, and then buy seeds earlier than you typically would think to buy seeds. If you know you want to buy seeds, buy your seeds by the end of the year, just in case. It's always good to have seeds in case there is some sort of emergency like Helene, or in case there's some sort of economic downturn like what's happening with the port strikers along the East Coast. So always be prepared. Buy your seeds now if you know you need something, so that you're prepared when the garden season comes. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.